Okay. So what are your primary job responsibilities?
Yeah, so I am the marketing and operations coordinator for the National Cherry Blossom Festival, specifically within the downtown bid for DC. And it's a really long title just to say I do all of festival operations. So our festival is 6 weeks long. It starts in a week and it goes until the middle of April. And so it includes a music festival, a parade, a kite festival, a smaller drum fest, a black tie event, and an opening ceremony. And so all of that I am a part of, I'm a part of the run of show. Like I create the breakdown of times. I do road closing permits, tent structure permits in DC. If a tent is being put on a road, it's considered a building in a way. So I have
Yeah.
to have building permits and I submit all of those. I work with our marketing team. That's where my marketing aspect comes in. And I do a lot of programming and programs and advertising, as well as I work on all directional signage. So the pretty signs that say restrooms here, this way for more fun, stuff like that, I get to create. And then some of the emails that I create on the marketing side are like if you buy tickets, you're going to get an email that says like no before you go. And it's all the logistical aspects of this is happening at this time. This is the schedule for the parade. This is the schedule. This is what the tickets look like, stuff like that.
Wow, I'm sure you are super busy right now, crunch time.
Honestly, today is not that bad, but yesterday I felt like I was going nonstop. There were days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many deadlines. And then other days I'm like, okay, wait, I can handle this.
Yeah. So how long have you worked in your current role?
My current role, I've worked in it about 9 months. And then before that, I freelance as an event coordinator for every woman's marathon.
Hello.
To about January.
You froze on me.
Okay.
I got all the way from women's marathon. That's the
Okay,
last I heard.
I'll just restart.
Sorry.
No, you're totally good. So I freelance for Run Nash, and I've been doing that for about a year. And I do basically the same thing that I do with the festival, but for Run Nash, but in a smaller aspect, because the team is much larger. But I was an intern at the Savannah Sports Council, which is like how I got connected because one of the races worked there. But that is like from January, like it ends in January and it starts in about like August. So it's like during race time. And so I do road closures, programming, stuff like that for them. And that's
Ooh.
been here.
Woman of all trades. So what kind of special like training or skills do you possess in order to be successful in your roles?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on getting my certified event planner certification. It's not necessarily a master's, but you have to be in the field a year plus like some internships or like some extracurriculars count towards it. And so I have that. And then I have different design certifications like through Canva and Adobe just because I work on the marketing graphic design side. But other than that, I like have a certificate of like completion for like Excel. But those are the only ones that like my job doesn't require me to have like any special ones.
Okay. Um, what are three things that you enjoy most about your line of work?
I really love seeing new people like experience what I get to work on every day. I feel like a lot of times I'm caught up in the very small details or the mundane task, but getting to see people travel to what I'm working on and they like experience the joy of what it is really exciting. It like shows me how important my work is. The next thing would be the people. Everyone that I work with is really passionate about what they're doing and really excited about what they're doing. So in the times where you're stressed out and you don't really enjoy what you're doing, you know you're doing it for a reason and these people around you like also have that same drive. And I would say no day looks the same. I know that's such a cheesy answer, but on Friday I went to an event at the National Stadium that we like partner with the Nats in. And then tomorrow, like I'm going to a volunteer kickoff. So like no day, like you're going to events, but they're very different. They're like at rooftop hotels or like they're at a park or like whatever. Or like some days you just sit in meetings all day, but no day really like looks the same. It's not always an exciting day, but it always is a different day. And you get to be outside a lot, which I love because I don't always love sitting in front of a computer at a desk, but you go on a lot of site visits, you meet with a lot of people, you survey a lot of land, you do a lot of map plotting, which allows you to be like outside in the spaces.
Okay, and then the other side of it, what are three things that you least like about your job?
Um, I sponsorships are a huge part of event planning and tourism in general because you have to get people to pay for things, and a huge easy way to do that is sponsorships. But fulfilling sponsorships sometimes is really hard, or getting things within the budget is hard. And so making sure your logos look perfectly, just like the little nitpicky details sometimes you're like, does it really matter if the logo is an inch bigger than it is? Maybe, but who knows? But
Yeah.
you're going to do it with a smile on your face. So that's something that sometimes like the sponsorships, the nitpicky parts, you're like, oh my gosh. And then I guess also like sometimes you just sit at your desk for days on end and you're like, man, I could be outside doing stuff. And then it really depends on what city you work in, but I know for cities I've worked in like Nashville, Savannah, Greenville, they have like very easy permitting processes. But in DC, which is like where currently that I'm working on, their permit process is a lot of like handshaking, a lot of like going in, introducing yourself. And so you have to be way more front facing. Um, and you also have to get like a lot of signatures. So it's a lot of like emailing and it's a lot of hoops to jump through where like other places you just like go in, you show them your paperwork and they're like, okay, perfect, here you go. And so I think like knowing how to do that sometimes is hard because it's different in every city. But you have a lot of hoops to jump through and eventually you get it done. But that's something that I don't like.
I I'm with you. I hate asking for money. It's the worst
Yeah.
thing ever. Um, so what kind of formal benefits do you receive working at your job, like paid vacations, insurance, things like that?
Yeah, so I have 15 paid days like PTO to take, and then all holidays are paid holidays for me. I have vision, dental, regular insurance. And we have for the most part, every federal holiday. I think the only ones that we don't get is if they're within festival season, like President's Day. We didn't get President's Day, but I remember when I was in college, I also didn't get
Yeah.
President's Day. So that wasn't shocking to me. But yeah, we're pretty flexible. I work 2 days remote. I work Tuesdays and Fridays remote, and then Mondays everyone's in the office, and then your team picks 2 days to come in, and my days are Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then my sick days don't come out of my PTO. So my job, if I take more than I think 3 days of sick days in a row, I have to show proof that I'm actually sick, like a doctor's note. But other than that, they just grace us with the ability to be sick on our own.
Oh, but lucky there. So how easy is it to work up the career ladder and achieve management level type positions in your company?
Um, it definitely is, I feel like challenging because I work on one of the biggest festivals in the US, but it's also a really small team. A lot of people that work at our office are contractors, meaning they only come in from, I believe it's like November until the festival ends at the end of April. And so from there, they are able to stay on after the festival. But after that, management, we only have three vice presidents and three directors. Like we have a very small exec team for a festival that puts on events for about 300,000 people. Um, but so in this role, it's not super easy to move up, but you meet a lot of people and you work with a lot of different people in the industry, and they are very aware that you can move on and they know that. And so our office is changing a lot, but I would say in general, that is how it is in the event field. So it's not like very different than what I've been used to working on.
Okay. Um, how do you perceive the effects of terrorism, war, safety, and security on your place of employment
Yeah,
and
so we all have
within
to
planning
take
festivals?
like crisis communication classes of if something happens, what's the chain of command, what do we do, what's like the breakout type deal. And then we also work with our local fire department, police department, rescue, EMS, all that. And so we have an on-site plan already in place if anything were to happen, whether it's rain, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's just like a float going crazy in the parade and someone drops it for wind, whatever it may be. So we have a plan already. We have an A plan, B plan, C plan. And then all of our like leads on site have walkie-talkies. We have 24-hour police presence at our event, starting from setup to breakdown. And then we also have like different road closures, traffic closure officers there. We work with local hospitals as well as the city's fire and rescue and EMS. So everyone city-wise is aware, and we have to present our plan to the mayor and her special event board. And so it has to be pretty detailed. But it is something that we are very aware of as we're planning because we know like where we live,
Yeah.
and the ability of anything happening, but also DC has pretty strict gun laws, so it's not always top of mind, but it is like present as we're planning things for large groups of people. And we have like credentials that we all wear. A lot of our events are ticketed, and so you have to have a ticket to get in, no matter what. You can't have like a guest with you, anything like that. Our all access passes are only for staff. We don't allow like VIPs. So we are pretty strict on certain areas you can be in, stuff like that, to make sure safety is number one priority for our participants, for our vendors and stuff like that.
And how is the economic crisis, previous or current, affect your employment?
I am still employed because I work in a nonprofit. I graduated with a recreation degree in parks and tourism services. And so I do know people who are not as lucky as I am to still have a job. The most it is affecting me is a lot of our sponsorships. We have a lot of like alcohol sponsorships, and a lot of them like primarily like sell to other countries like Canada or whatever. And they have pulled out some of our sponsorships just because they are not able to provide that because of the loss of money that they're receiving from the tariffs. And then our tour groups are a big part of our economic impact here in DC. And people are less likely to come to DC now, especially if they're international. We had, I think, in our tour package, like you could get part of our parade tickets. And we had 7 groups cancel last week that were all from Canada. So it's not directly affecting my role, but it is affecting the festival and other people's roles. Um, and so when the country's doing well and prices are down, more people are likely to spend a lot more money than when prices are up and they're trying to save money. And so they're not going to come and be frivolous. And companies are not going to give to you if they're losing money. So,
Yes, definitely. So how would you describe the profile of the primary market for your festivals, like youth, older adults? Who do you market?
it really depends on the event. So, for example, our Blossom Kite Festival is primarily geared towards kids and like kite flying age because it happens on the Washington Memorial like monument area. And so it's all like tourists that are coming for like the Blossom Kite Festival and Blossom cherry blossom season. And so that's like family. We have a family field, we have like stages, stuff like that. And then like our pink tie party, which is a black tie gala, that's mainly focused like stakeholders in DC. And so a lot of congressmen come, senators, like a lot of high profile people come in that live in DC. And so we're able to market each event individually to a different sector. But for the most part, it is like family friendly stuff happening through like fireworks, stuff like that.
Okay. Let's see. How do you see the business's connection to the broader tourism industry and like where does it fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, so we do a lot of partnerships with Destination DC and Events DC, which is like the Sport Commission and the Destination Marketing Org for DC. And so we work with them on how to market to international groups, bigger groups. A lot of the groups that come and play for us at our drum festival, at our Pedalpalooza, which is like our music festival, and then our Tidal Basin, which is like where the cherry blossoms like area is mainly in DC. We have like a stage there. They're all throughout the US, so we like market specifically for that artist. But it is one of the biggest events in DC, and so using their resources and the resources we have go a long way. And like we have over 1 million visitors coming just for cherry blossoms, not necessarily just our events. And so I think it's huge to use their resources because they have a lot of partnerships with the Washington magazines. They have a lot of benefits within the flights. We have 3 local airports near the Baltimore, BWI, Dulles, and then Reagan, which is like our national airport in DC. And so we do a lot of billboards, we do a lot of magazines, we do a lot of like bus signage, train signage. We have stuff in like Washington, like the Union Station train station as well, like the Philly train station. So putting it in hubs where tourism already exists is huge for us.
Okay. And how has the coronavirus pandemic affected everything?
Yeah, so I actually got COVID a couple weeks ago. Literally embarrassing to get
So
it.
sorry. It's still going around.
No, I know. I thought I had the flu and he was like, "You have COVID." And I was like, "Same." For the most part, like we are aware that it is still here, it still exists, and it's still something we are making sure we're all like safe. My company does require us to be vaccinated. Just like I feel like most companies in DC require you to be vaccinated. At least like my 2 roommates do, and my sister's does. But it is like a health plan that we go into of like what's gonna happen if we have an outbreak, how will we deal with things. We are definitely seeing numbers come back from where they were previously. They definitely did drop. This is about the time where we decided a couple years ago that the Cherry Blossom Festival was not going to happen. And so we did a virtual viewing of the cherry blossoms, and if people wanted to come see them, they could drive, but we weren't putting on any programming. And so we're basically back to normal at this point. We do like manage capacity, knowing like those numbers that we like had before. And we market as heavily as we did before COVID to try and get back to them.
Okay. And how does technology play into like marketing? Like, do you still use newspapers or is it just strictly like social media based?
Yeah, so we have a program map and like plan that goes out. And it's kind of like a newspaper. And we still print, like we still have a pamphlet that you can get like the event schedule on of like what's happening. All of our signage still, some of them have QR codes where you can be like scan to see the stage schedule, but we print stage schedules. But we do use social media heavily to be like, here's an updated run of show or whatever, this is changing or this is who's performing at this time now. But for the most part, we still do print. We work with Washington Magazine a lot, and they primarily do a lot of our social media work for us. but print is still heavy for us. We still use physical tickets. You can do the tickets on your phone, but if you come up to our ticket counter for tickets, we do have them available print. We don't email tickets. Um, because the more like touches we receive, the more people are going to see our branding instead of a white screen with a code on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what are some of like the biggest challenges you faced in organizing the festival as far as like logistics and audience engagement? Like, what are those biggest challenges there?
Yeah, I would say knowing what you want your festival takeaway to be. So we have a lot of like vendors coming and we want to make an impact for the people that are coming. I don't want them to receive a pamphlet about DC water if they don't live in DC. Or like I don't want them to learn about the Washington bike services if like that doesn't impact them. Like I don't want people to be taking back a piece of paper. I want them to be taking back an experience. And so being very mindful of who is like being a vendor or activating your space. And so if they want to become a vendor, they can become a vendor, but they have to have an activity with it, whether it's coloring, whether it's friendship bracelets, like whatever it is, whether it's we have like a trucker hat company coming to one of our events. And so being aware of what who's coming and what they're expecting is huge because you just don't want anyone and everyone at your event. Um, and then also becoming very aware of the impact your event is going to have on that space. We have to go and present to the ANC, which is like our neighborhood community area. And so it's their advisory community, like their board, and they get to ask us questions like, how will open container affect this day? Like we have kids in the area, or like, how will y'all manage trash pickup? Or like, this is what happened before with the trash. What are you doing differently to work on that? And so I think hearing other people's from the outside really help us see what we can do better and where we can grow and making sure we're being very aware of like what's being printed, what's being taken up space, whether it's economically accessible or environmentally friendly. Like just making sure like we're not printing stuff to print stuff or we're not just like using single-use plastic everywhere. Like making the smart decision because this event happens every year and it has for the past 50 years and it will continue, meaning like we can splurge on something if it means we'll save it in the long run and it's more environmentally effective as well.
Okay. Just three more questions. How does tourism trends impact your festival, like,
Yeah,
in
so
general?
yeah, it is massive. So DC obviously is one of the biggest tourist destinations, just because of it being the capital. And so we're coming up on like field trip season. And so that is huge. And so trends like affect us of who's going to what, and when they're going to what, whether that's because of the weather, whether that's because of money issues, stuff like that. So it really does hit home. We have a lot of local people that come out to our events. And so local impact is huge as well. But for the most part, all of our stuff is for people that are flying in, driving in, stuff like that. And so if no one is able to, we definitely do feel the effects of it, just like the economic impact here in DC does too.
And how do you think the location of your festival is crucial to the success of it?
Yeah, so DC is broken out into 8 wards. They're like neighborhoods because we're not a state. And so we don't really have cities. We just have 8 wards. And so our goal as a festival is to have an event in each of the 8 wards so that every neighborhood gets a little bit of the economic impact that's happening. Because of the festival, and they reap the benefits of us using their property and their land and their parks and everything. And so we really try to make sure that each neighborhood is like taken care of and appreciated and used, which really helps us.
Okay. And last question, do you have any recommendations for students interested in working in the tourism, events, or hospitality industries?
Yeah, I would say definitely start where you can, whether that's just like a couple hours a week, whether it's like a side hustle or whether it's like an internship. I know a lot of internships are paid now, and if you're able to take an unpaid internship, that's like an internship of your dream, then like definitely do it. If you're able to make that sacrifice. But if you're not, there are other internships that are just as good. Um, I think definitely like apply. I interned with Destination DC, which is DC's destination marketing org, and I was a sophomore in college and I literally had just learned about marketing orgs in my tourism class. And I was like, I want to intern for one. And so I Googled Destination Marketing Org, and they were the first one that popped up, and I applied for their internship. And so I think just apply. Like, worst case scenario, you're going to be told no. Best case scenario, you'll get an interview. And even if you don't get the internship, the interview is the best like experience you can get and talking to someone in the real world because you'll have their email information, they'll have their connection. I saw my internship advisor at our press conference last week, like 2 years later, and Lindsay like texts me every day, maybe not every day, but like once a week checking in. She works a couple blocks down from me. Like I was on a meeting with her and like I was like presenting something to her. And so internships really do come full circle, but also like never saying no. I know you should say no about boundaries and workplace management and life skills. However, there are a lot of things that I get asked to do sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know how to do it, but I'm gonna figure it out. And so, especially if it's in your job description, or if you're just like, that'd be really cool to learn how to do. I now make web edits and I work on our website design board. And I didn't know how to do that. And I like sat down with our graphic designer and I was like, show me how to do that. And she walked me through it. And if I had any questions, I Googled it first. Like resources are at our fingertips. And I think we can ask a ton of questions to the people around us, but we can also just Google it and find out. So take initiative. Make sure you're staying up to date with what's in the industry, what's happening around us, but just apply yourself. I was in like 19 organizations in college. I was a president of an organization. I was a vice president to two different ones. Like I was super, super involved, which made me super well-rounded, and I was able to have really good time management skills because of that. And through that, I was able to market myself as not just like an intern coming out of college and not an associate, but I skipped intern and associate and went straight into a coordinator level role. And so I think the more involved you are, the better you can market yourself, um, like comes out in the end. So yeah.